I believe we can all acknowledge that this is not an easy time to work in public education. This is my 43rd year of being involved in the education of Delaware children. Everyone else seems to have their own ideas about how educators should do what educators know best how to do. And many of these folks have no hesitation about expressing their perspectives and beliefs. But throughout this time, I have seen again and again that you and I, as well as the rest of the membership of the Delaware State Education Association, stand up for what is right and good and true about kids, classrooms, and schools, and we stand strong. We may occasionally lose sight of progress along the way. We may not always recognize the value of every step in a managed and strategic process. We may not be aware of each and every accomplishment. However, I'm here today to remind us all about what can be accomplished with the engagement of our rank and file members, the energy and efforts by local leaders across the state in every one of our 19 school districts, as well as the day-to-day work of the staff here at DSEA. Let me start with a recent example, a crisis situation that surely captured the attention of the Delaware State Education Association leadership team, executive board, and staff for the past 6 months. Most likely it's been on your minds as well, because it eluded no one that this could happen in any one of our districts. Here's a sterling example of how calculated member engagement led to widespread community involvement, as well as invaluable support from members of the Delaware General Assembly, all of which has changed the tenor and direction of the conversation. On Thursday, September 4th, Governor Markell designated 6 schools in Wilmington as new priority schools. The kids in classrooms in those Red Clay and Christina schools, identified by the Delaware Department of Education as top priorities, surely need and deserve the kinds of attention and resources that could really work to strengthen student success. What they did not need was micromanagement by an entity 50 miles south in Dover, or the kinds of harmful rating, ranking, and labeling that accompanied the announcement and the plan. Our members in these schools have been and always will be committed to creating environments conducive to effective instruction that supports student learning. They understand that these very schools could be genuinely transformed with adequate, sustainable funding, carefully selected programs, proper resources, small class sizes, and the comprehensive special services that these kids, families, and neighborhoods really need. You and I know that educators in these schools, as well as their colleagues across the entire state, make a difference every day in the lives and futures of their students. More importantly, this belief was fully substantiated by last November's Comprehensive Success Review, a report issued by the University of Delaware, the Delaware Academy of School Leadership, and the Delaware Department of Education. The review gave an overall high rating to both Bancroft Elementary and Stubbs Elementary schools, 2 of the 3 priority schools named in Christina. The report highlighted many areas of strength demonstrated at both schools, an indication that significant progress and learning had been taking place. Jeff Tashner and I were first informed about the 6 schools on September 2nd. Our immediate concern was the possibility that the local leaders might not know. As it turned out, they had been informed just a few days earlier. Planning immediately began. Serendipitously, Mike and Mike happen to be the two local presidents that we sent to last June's week-long Mid-Atlantic Region Organizing Institute. With the help of DSEA field staff, they took steps to inform members, to utilize strategies that they had learned, and to mobilize educators to speak at board meetings in each district. These members spoke truth to power. This kind of member engagement and the strength and clarity of their messages and presentations created a foundation for progress. Through it all, DSEA members stood strong for student success. Now, it appears that schools and student attendance areas in Christina, Colonial, and Red Clay may be realigned so that eventually city students, K-12, can attend city schools. This process cannot be rushed. Careful planning, community engagement, and thoughtful attention to details are required when faced with monumental change, complex systems, and a multitude of considerations. It is essential that members of all Christina, Colonial, and Red Clay locals, not just those that represent teachers, be directly involved in discussions and planning throughout this process. Please join DSEA in fighting for your right to be included at every phase of planning. In regards to this plan, like you, we have lots of questions about the challenges ahead for Wilmington schools. What potential benefits could be realized? How plans will be developed? Who will be involved in decision-making? This is a huge undertaking. I may be one of the few people here today who in 1978, as part of court-ordered desegregation, experienced the consolidation of 11 Newcastle County school districts into one. It was an ambitious plan, certainly, but fraught with lots of difficulties, including a 27-day teacher strike when the initial plan failed to level the 11 different salary scales. Duh. Like you, we are hopeful that this will work out for the best. For student growth and progress to continue in these schools, kids' academic, social, emotional, and basic human needs must be met, and educators must receive the resources, support, and respect that professionals deserve. There are plenty of other issues that deserve attention today. Throughout this past year's debates on educator compensation and leadership, we have continued to abide by the principles laid down in August of 2013 by the DSEA Executive Board, that current educators must have a choice as to whether or not to participate, that leadership roles must be available to all interested teachers and specialists, and consideration must be given to the restoration and recognition of national board certification and skills and knowledge programs. We were the members of the task force who insisted that the process include outreach to our members. Our members' engagement in the focus groups and town hall sessions across the state helped completely redirect the focus of discussions and planning. I want to especially recognize the partnership with Representative Harvey Kenton that has developed. Representative Kenton's down-to-earth, common-sense approach, as well as his power as a sitting legislator, has greatly helped move the group past several sticking points. An important campaign over the past year has been our efforts to obtain an additional year for Group 1 educators, those who are math and ELA teachers, before the smarter balanced test results can be used to make evaluation and employment decisions. So we have 1 year this year. We're looking for at least a second year. The fact that 24 legislators signed on to this letter to Governor Markell and continue to demand that the department include this request in the DSEA waiver is significant. The support and outspoken advocacy on this issue of Representatives Sean Lynn and Kim Williams and Senator Brian Townsend has been incredibly beneficial. At this week's presentation by department leadership on Delaware's DSEA flexibility waiver plans, these legislators and others peppered the department with questions and very pointed comments. And in the end, Committee Chair Earl Jakes directed the department to either make the request for the second year or there would be serious consequences. He said loudly, "Let me make this clear. We are directing you to include this request to U.S. Ed." Now, there's no promise that the United States Department of Education will agree to such a request, but if the request is never made, then, nothing's ever going to happen. It is no surprise that DSEA's most valued and productive partnerships would be with members of the General Assembly. Nothing brings people together like adversity. Delaware legislators across this state are paying attention to educators and parents' concerns related ultimately to accountability and testing. Legislators are parents or grandparents of school-aged children. Several have children with special needs. They have friends and family members in education. Many have close relationships with some of your own members, and all value constituent feedback. Additionally, legislators have not been pleased with the uneven responsiveness of the department leadership, of the inadequate follow-up on requests for information or answers to simple basic questions, or the messaging from the department about schools in a legislator's district, or the apparent lack of respect afforded members of the General Assembly. And all one has to do to cement that bond is suggest to a state legislator that the leadership of the Department of Education believes that DOE's authority supersedes that of elected officials. We are spearheading efforts to remove epilogue language from 2011 that gives the Secretary of Education the ability to waive code in regard to DSEA. As you can imagine, this has gained support from members in both the Republican and the Democratic caucuses. We have received positive responses, especially from members of the Joint Finance Committee, to our lobbying in opposition to the department's budget request this year for $7.4 million to sustain Race to the Top initiatives and administrative costs, as well as to pay the rather astounding salaries of personnel in the department's Teacher and Leader Effectiveness Unit. In my comments at the February hearing, I made it clear that like DASA, the Delaware Association of School Administrators, and the group that represents the chief school officers, we stood in support of funding for critical classroom programs like response to intervention and English language learners, funding that meet the needs of the whole child. Kristen is currently working with locals to arrange for legislators to attend monthly rep council meetings so that members can have conversations about current education policies and initiatives. Members can share their experiences in their own words with legislators who are eager to listen. DSEA's multi-year campaign for para salaries has always relied on working with legislators and their staffs, bringing the pay of each of our para-educators, full-time public school employees, up to a minimum that matches federal poverty guidelines for a family of 4 has been in the works since language was put into Epilogue in 2005. In 2010, the General Assembly began the actual process of reducing the number of salary steps from 26 to 10, so that paras reach their maximum earnings 16 years sooner than before. We also negotiated a 4-year plan to increase salaries at every step. To bring the plan to fruition has been a multi-step process, including initial outreach to key members of education committees and the JFC, written communications through DSEA Action and other venues, mobilization of para leaders and their members, engagement of then Vice President Mike Hoffman to serve as a key lobbyist on the issue, arranging lobby days at Legislative Hall for para activists. This process has brought us to the 4th year, and we are still working hard to get over the hurdles posed by ongoing funding deficits. But the process has worked, and we're almost finished. The leadership team has scheduled dinner meetings with ESP presidents in each county. At last week's meeting in Millsboro, with leaders in Sussex County, concerns were shared about the formula used to provide funding for custodian positions in each school, and the need for adequate and direct funding for technology positions. In some districts, technology specialists, the folks who maintain computers and keep systems up and running, are funded, at least in part, with custodian money. These are the kinds, well, it's because the state isn't funded otherwise, so I understand that something has to work. These are the kinds of issues that deserve wider discussion. We have meetings in the next few weeks in Kent and Newcastle counties with ESP presidents. Member concerns are certainly not limited to education issues. Later today, Jeff will provide more information about the recent proposals by the state to pass along increased health care costs to state employees. He will lead you in a direct advocacy effort to continue to make our voices heard on this issue. Please recall that it was just last year that important legislation was passed to give State Workers United, that's the coalition of the 13 state employee unions, a seat on the State Employee Benefits Committee, a victory that was years in the making. In the last week, due to our combined advocacy, the House Democratic leadership wrote a letter to Governor Markell to support us and our State Workers United partners in the face of proposed healthcare cost increases. It's this kind of relationship building and partnership that we find to be effective. Our partnerships with the Delaware Association of School Administrators, the Delaware Chief School Officers, and the Delaware School Boards Association, the group that represents most local school boards, have been incredibly beneficial. Even Governor Markell's announcement yesterday about, wouldn't have been yesterday, it would have been 2 days ago, about creating a process to finally review tests and testing is the result of increased advocacy by our members and the growing partnerships with others who think like we do. Superintendents, district and school administrators, local school boards, the Governor's Advisory Council for Exceptional Citizens, and the state PTA. We particularly value our ongoing partnership with the Delaware State PTA. For the past 2 years, we have been in close contact with PTA leadership about shared interests and concerns. The current focus has been on parents opting a child out of standardized testing. While we have continued discussions with legislators and other community leaders, we have always felt that the PTA, as a parent-driven organization, deserved the lead on this issue. The PTA Council will take a vote this week on March 24th to determine their organization's position. I was included on the panel at the Newcastle County Town Hall session on parent opt-out on February 19th. The current regime of testing is not beneficial to children or educators. Too much testing and the overemphasis on test results has significant negative consequences in our schools. However, opt-out is really only a temporary remedy. Our real goal should be to reduce the time and attention squandered on testing. Last year's legislation to reestablish the DPAS-2 Advisory Committee, the only committee related to educator evaluation set in code, and to return control to educators and administrators has already begun to pay off. Just yesterday, well, just 2 days ago, you can tell when I was finishing this up, just 2 days ago, the committee voted to not support the department's recent proposed changes and to allow educators to review processes and recommend changes that they believe will actually improve the system. Internally, DSEA has seen a growth in membership, with an over 2% rise in professional members and over 3% in ESP members. We are only one of a few state affiliates whose membership numbers have increased in an increasingly anti-union environment. We have totally redesigned our website to meet the needs of members and to more effectively include our retiree and student groups. We have initiated targeted member communications related to our mission and strategic plan. These electronic updates, professionally speaking, and legislative matters are sent every 2 weeks via email in order to communicate directly to members on professional and legislative policy issues. Be on the lookout for our fabulous new series of 3 video commercials featuring paraeducator Michael Brown from Capital and State Teachers of the Year Lee Wainwright from Appoquinimink and Megan Zabo of Cesar Rodney. The video clips are shown in local movie theaters and on TV. We continue to get great feedback from members and the public about our radio messages focused on tips for parents and families. We have continued to expand and enhance our professional development, leadership, and union skills training. We conducted a highly successful weekend of winter advocacy retreat in January. Our efforts have evolved to the point where we have members training members on professional issues. We are working with our non-para ESP members, secretaries, custodians, food service, and transportation members to develop training that will meet their specific needs. Our upcoming Professional Development Day on March 28th already has a waiting list. And looking forward to this year's EMAC conference on Saturday, April 25th, and our annual HCR Dinner and Awards program on May 7th. As educators, you and I are deeply committed to the success of every student. Students are at the center of everything we do. We need time to do our jobs, and they need time to learn. Time to teach, time to learn. Not just a concept, not just a slogan. Over the next 2 months, we'll help local leaders carry out an NEA-designed campaign to engage local school boards in supporting a resolution to end the overuse and misuse of standardized testing. Like our members who provide direct instruction and assistance to students, including teachers, specialists, and paras, NEA recognizes the persistent problems that the current focus on testing and obsession on test results has created. This will focus attention on the number of tests students take each year, the quality and value of mandated tests, the amount of time devoted to testing, reducing time for real instruction, questionable test prep activities, the difficulties in helping students transition from one type of standardized test to another. As you've heard, SBAC will be our third state test in 7 years. We have kids in high school who will have taken the DSTP, the DCAS, and now the SBAC test. The narrowing of curriculums with limited time for K-5 science and social studies, and a curtailment of arts-related activities, assemblies, special projects, and even recess. So where does this leave us? Where do we stand? Each of our member categories, school secretaries, food and nutrition workers, paras, custodians, bus drivers, transportation aides, teachers, and specialists like counselors, nurses, psychologists, and librarians, all are focused on the children they serve. If we are serious about helping every child succeed, serious about closing achievement gaps, serious about making sure that a high-quality education is provided to every student in Delaware, regardless of their zip code or socioeconomic status, we need to support solutions and initiatives that operate outside of the box, that look at all the factors that impact a child's potential for educational success, and that are integrated to work in combination to produce greater effect. We will continue to seek and support both basic and bold initiatives aimed at helping establish and maintain schools that are safe, secure, and supportive for all. Thank you.